Hello, welcome back. It's been a while since I've read, so here we are reading True, Sort of. We're on chapter 12, Deli spent Sunday on the front porch, staying in one spot like Clarice had suggested. She sat on the steps, spinning her head so she wouldn't miss anything. All the while, her mouth was mumbling, "Come on, come on, come on," even when she ate her meals. After lunch, Arby sat down beside her. "What are you doing?" "Waiting." "Come on." "For my surpresent." "Come on," she answered. Arby thought for a minute. "Are you grounded for fighting with Gal?" With her head twirling like that, it was hard to tell if she was nodding. "Del?" She stopped for a second. "We moved around too much yesterday," she explained. "I'm staying here so the surpresent can find me." "Oh." Arby watched her head whirl for a while, but it wasn't any fun. "I'm going," he told her. Without Deli, though, there wasn't much to do. He threw rocks at the side of the house till Clarice yelled, "Who's hitting my house?" He was picking up worms with a stick when the idea came to him. "I'll bring it to her," he breathed. "Deli, is this your surpresent?" he said as he stuck a half-eaten candy bar in her face. Deli waited for the tingle to tell. "Nope," she told him, and went back to mumbling. After a while, he returned. "Is this it?" It was Tallahassee's trick quarter. "No," she sighed. He found it under the back porch. He covered it with a cloth and carried it to her. "Deli! Deli! Deli!" He was bouncing on the step and singing. Her head quit swinging. "What's this about?" He pulled the cloth away, and there it was. A squirrel carcass. There was no fur on it, just dark skin stretched over bones with the tail sticking straight out. Deli sucked in air, so she whistled. "A ball-gram squirrel mummy," she whispered. She touched the skin with her finger. "Well, is it? Arby grinned. Deli closed her eyes and wished for the tingle, because that squirrel was as good as any surpresent she ever got. She waited and waited, but nothing happened. When she opened her eyes, she didn't say anything. Arby covered it up again. "I'll save it for you," he said. "You go play with Gladys," she rasped, because it hurt, watching him lose his hope too. "You sure?" he asked. Her head twirled. All the way to Cledis's, Arby shouted, "Come on, come on, come on!" It was dark when Clarice came to get her. "Deli, time for bed," she called. "Come on." "Can't." "Come on," she replied. If she got up, the hope would be gone for good. Clarice sat beside her. "Deli," she said softly, "I know you want a surpresent, but you don't need one. You got good all around you." She put her hands out like she was holding it for her. Deli shook her head hard, because she knew about the good all around her. She needed to know there was good in her. She needed something in the world to say, "Deli Pattinson, you're not just trouble. Here's a surpresent to prove it." "Ma, she tried telling her, but there wasn't a word for feeling so sad and close to hopeless. "Tired," she sighed, and got up off the step. "Good night, Deli," Clarice told her. "Night," she said, because that was all it was. Chapter 13. That night, Deli didn't get a surpresent. Sleep brought her something, though, because in the morning she came downstairs with a smirk. Walking to school, Arby asked her, "You okay?" "Oh, yeah," she sneered, "because I got good all around me." "Who needs a surpresent with all this good around me?" she went on, kicking the sidewalk. "No more waiting and hoping for me, Arby. I'm going to grab the good around me." She swiped the air. Arby just watched her. At the school entrance, Deli held the door. "Go on," she told him. So he did. When he got to his classroom, Arby turned to tell his sister, "See ya," but there was no sister to be seen. "No," he gasped, and headed for the door. To Miss Nighterbaum nabbed him. "Your room's this way," she said, and steered him back. From his desk, Arby stared out the window. "Oh, Deli," he whispered. Weekday mornings, Norma at the IGA made donuts. She made vanilla glazed with nuts, maple glazed with coconut, chocolate with chocolate icing and chocolate sprinkles. Those days, the air around the IGA smelled so good you want to eat it. Deli peeked in to make sure Norma wasn't at the checkout, then headed straight for the donut case. She greeted them. She grabbed a sack and filled it with a dozen delicious delights. Vern Teeter rang her up at the register. You having a party? Something like that, Deli smirked. Better hurry, he warned her, or you'll be late for school. Oh, I will, she promised. She ran out of the IGA and raced to the river. It wasn't 2 minutes till she was sitting under the River Road Bridge, deciding which donut to devour first. Triple chocolate, she declared. Ma's right, she said as she snatched it out of the sack. I don't need a surpresent. I got a deli present. With deli presents, there'd be no more waiting, no worrying if she was good enough. Terrific, she proclaimed. With the river rolling by and the sun shining on her, she raised the donut in the air. Good all around me, she grinned and took a bite. Good in me, too, she said, spitting chocolate chunks. Clayton Fitch was on his way to the IGA when Deli dashed by him. It wasn't a minute till he was on the phone to Officer Tibbets. Verena, he squawked, that Pattinson's running to the riv. Officer Tibbets hung up before he could finish. Deli wouldn't be celebrating alone. It wasn't 3 minutes till the policewoman had parked the cruiser by the bridge. There was half a donut hanging out of Deli's mouth when she ordered, Drop it, Delaware. What the glub, she muttered, and the donut plopped to the ground. Officer Tibbets seized the bag. You won't need these where you're going, she grabbed the girl's arm. Deli was too stunned to struggle, and the policewoman led her to the cruiser. She put her in back, behind the bars. But it was terrific, Deli mumbled as they drove to the school with the siren screaming. Chapter 14. Lionel Terwilliger taught the 5th grade, including Deli. He liked big words, and he called everybody Miss or Mister. What Deli liked about Lionel Terwilliger, though, was he never shamed her. When she was in trouble, he'd bend down beside her and whisper, Miss Pattison, there's an issue we need to discuss. And then he'd tell her what she'd done wrong. Deli always listened. Somehow, she always messed up again. Still, she was never just trouble to Lionel Terwilliger. So when Miss Niederbaum brought Deli to the classroom and told him, Delaware is joining us after all, he said, Miss Pattison, your presence is always appreciated. Deli was still in shock. She stared at the floor, seeing river and rocks instead. We have a new student, he told her. Since you missed introductions, I will present you now. Lionel Terwilliger put his hand on Deli's shoulder, and that made her look up. He raised his arm, and Deli's eyes followed it. To a boy. A Ball-Graham no-surpresent boy. Miss Delaware Pattison, he announced, this is Miss Ferris Boyd. Deli didn't say it to be mean. She said it because after being wrong about everything else, she was right about this. That's no miss, she announced. That's a boy. Right away there were giggles. Danny Novello laughed out loud. Bright red ran up the boy's neck and covered his face. This is Miss Boyd, Lionel Terwilliger insisted. But Miss Pattison, he boomed. That is enough. And Deli heard it in his voice. Now she was just trouble to Lionel Terwilliger too. Please be seated, he said sternly. Deli shuffled to her seat and slumped into it. The feeling bad was back, full blast. It was pounding her with bad, wrong, trouble, all morning long. When the recess bell rang, Deli didn't hurry. As she slouched past his desk, Lionel Terwilliger called to her, Miss Pattison. She trudged over. There is information I shared with the class before Miss Boyd arrived, which you need to know, he said, no warmth in his voice. First, Miss Boyd does not speak. What the? She mumbled. His hand went up. She can hear, but she does not speak. In addition, she must not be touched. Deli dropped her head. Now he thought she was so bad she'd hit a no-talking girl. I wouldn't fight her, she muttered. I was not suggesting you would strike Miss Boyd, he replied. She must not be touched by anyone. Is that understood? Deli nodded. You may go. He dismissed her. But she had to tell Lionel Terwilliger, who hadn't given up on her till today. I didn't mean to. Delaware, he stopped her. Then he said softly, I know. Deli looked up. Despite your intentions, however, you injure others. You must learn to... Deli watched his mouth, waiting for the words. How could she stop the trouble? How could she be good? Instead, he sighed. He couldn't help her. She slunk outside to recess. Okay. Chapter 15. Danny DeVello was good-looking. He was good at school, good at sports, and there was good in him somewhere. But his mouth was mean. He'd ask Delilah Dingham, who was smart in science, "Do you have a mom and dad, or did they make you in a test tube?" He told the Detbarn twins, who had problems with personal hygiene, "I heard skunks won't get near you." He oinked at Melbert Fouts, who was fat, and Melbert cried. Everybody was afraid of Danny Novello's mouth. Everybody except Deli. Danny Novello loved Deli. He loved her tininess and her trouble. He'd loved her since first grade, but his mouth was too mean to tell her. The love had only festered with time. Soon, whenever he got near her, his heart beat so hard it hurt. "Tell her," it pounded, "or I'll burst." So this past Christmas, he decided to declare it. "Best gift she'll ever get," he boasted. He was so sure of himself, he brought a crowd. "Watch this," he told them, and parked himself in front of her. "What do you want?" she rasped. As soon as Deli closed her mouth, he smacked it with a big, fat kiss. He stood there, waiting for her to say, "I love you too, Ball Grammit." Deli's eyes went wild. She coughed like a cat hacking up a hairball, and then she puckered up too. Novello closed his eyes for the kiss he knew was coming. Instead, Deli turned her head and spit the biggest goober those children had ever seen. The crowd gasped. Novello's eyes flipped open. "What the?" he wondered. And Deli slugged him. She dropped him hard. As he hit the ground, air blew out of him like a popped tire. She bent down, with her mouth as close to his as it would ever get. She growled, "You try that again? I'll knock you into next week," and walked away. Tater was still staring at the spot where the spit hit. "Wow," was all he could say. The crowd giggled. "Something funny?" Novello hissed. They all shook their heads. Danny Novello couldn't stop loving Deli, but he couldn't forgive her for refusing him either. And from then on, most of his mouth meanness went to her. He was waiting for Deli with a pack of kids when she came out for recess. He and Tater stood in front of her, so she had to stop. "Hey, Danny," Tater shouted. "It's Miss Pattinson." That's no miss," Novello yelled. "That's a monkey." The crowd exploded with laughter. Deli exploded with punches. But she was wild. Mostly she was pummeling air. And Novello was laughing. "I feel a flea. A bug's biting me." Till she got him in the gut. "Oof," he explained. She jumped him, and he toppled like a tree taken down by a tiny lumberjack. "Ah!" he screamed. He landed with her on his chest. "Open wide," she hollered. "Here comes lunch." She cocked her right fist behind her head, all ready to send a knuckle sandwich to his mouth. Miss Niderbaum stopped at the delivery. She grabbed Deli's arm, then hoisted her off him. "What the glub?" Deli explained. "We're taking a trip," Miss Niderbaum said as she carried her across the playground. "How many weeks on Alaska this time?" Deli grumbled. But they did not travel to Alaska. They went straight to the place big trouble ends up, the principal's office. As Miss Niderbaum set her down outside Miss McDougall's door, she said, "I think you've done it this time." And Deli, who'd lost her surpresent, her Deli present, and Lionel Terwilliger, muttered, "Nothing left to lose." She was wrong about that, too. Chapter 16. All afternoon, Deli sat in the chair. "Must have forgotten about me," she snickered. Then, from down the hall, she heard Clarice's voice. "We're here to see Miss McDougall." "It's about Deli," Boomer added. "Chisel," Deli murmured. She watched them walk toward her. Boomer shook his head when he spotted her. "Deli," Clarice sighed, as if the word meant something sad. Miss McDougall was at her door. "Mr. and Mrs. Pattinson, come in," she told them, and they disappeared. It was a long time later when the principal called, "Delaware, please join us." She trudged to the door. Boomer and Clarice were sitting against the wall. Boomer's eyes were red and his jaw was tight. Clarice was clenching her chair so her knuckles were white. Deli slumped to her seat. I've told your parents about your trip to the river and the fight at recess, Miss McDougall began. Huh, Deli mumbled. For the rest of the week, you'll have detention and recess on Alaska. Your parents have decided on a punishment for home. Boomer's mouth barely moved. Your room, for a week. Deli's head popped up. For Deli punishments, it was puny. That's it, she muttered. It wasn't. Delaware, the trouble is chronic, Miss McDougall continued. We're not sure this school can help you and keep the other children safe, too. We think another placement might be better for everyone. Deli was wondering if that meant Alaska all day, every day, when the principal told her, We've agreed to give you one more chance to succeed here. Huh? Deli didn't understand. Boomer explained, If you mess up one more time, it's over. You go to a new school for troubled kids. Deli thought about that. Then she asked, If I went to this other place, would I stop being bad? Miss McDougall shrugged. We hope it doesn't come to that. Nobody had been watching Clarice because Clarice wasn't talking, but sounds were coming out of her now. Deli glanced at her mother. Tears were pouring down Clarice's cheeks like tiny waterfalls. She was holding in sobs, so they'd sounded like hiccups. Deli's heart stopped. This was worse than any trouble. It was the world falling apart, because Clarice Pattinson didn't cry, ever, till today. Ma, Deli called, trying to stop it. Clarice turned to her. She didn't speak, but her eyes were asking. Deli knew what she wanted. She wanted hope. She wanted her to say, I'll be different, I promise. But Deli didn't know how to be not Deli. Sorry, she whispered. Clarice closed her eyes. Her head dropped to her chest. She'd given up on Deli, too. Miss McDougall stood. Boomer and Clarice walked out of the office with Deli behind them. They rode in the van without words. When they got home, nobody had to tell Deli to go to her room. Chapter 17. Okay. Deli lay on her bed. In her head, she made a list of the people who'd given up on her. It was a long one. There was Officer Tibbets, Clayton Fitch, Norma, and all the friends she didn't have anymore. Just today, she'd added Lionel Terwilliger, Miss McDougall, and Boomer. And Clarice. Making Clarice cry was the worst of it. Then Deli added one more name to the list. Me. I'd be better if I wasn't around, she said out loud, so whatever brought surpresents could take her away. There were 2 rivers of tears backing up behind her eyeballs, but she wouldn't let them out. She was squeezing her eyes tight till they stopped stinging. It was late when Arby showed up. He lay down beside her. Deli, he asked, are you going to a different school? She shrugged, and the bed shook a little. Don't go. His voice was cracking like he'd cry. She shrugged again. Then Arby was shouting, Just quit it! Just quit getting in trouble! I'm not trying to get in trouble, she shouted back. Arby knew that was true. What are you trying to do? He asked. She thought about it. Have fun? Do something good? Except when I fight. He said it quietly, so she wouldn't slug him too hard. Maybe you should try something different. She didn't smack him. Instead, she rasped, I don't know how to be. Not me. They both lay there for a while. Del, he said. Huh. You know when I knock on your door and you say, Go away, I'm doing something, and I want to say, You're not doing anything, let me in. But I don't. I just sit there and wait. Deli didn't know that. Or you know when Galveston says, Arby, I'm in charge, clean up this room, and I want to take my spatula and whap her, but I don't. I just walk away. Deli didn't know that either. Know what I'm doing instead of whapping? What? She turned to him, waiting for the words. Finally, someone was going to tell her how to stop the trouble. I'm counting, Arby smiled, so proud of himself. What? She screeched. I'm counting, you know? 1, 2, 3. It makes me calm down. That's what you gotta do, Del. You gotta count, he told her, like he'd solved everything. Arby, she was talking through her teeth. I'm in trouble up to my eyeballs, and you think I should count? Yep, he said surely. RB, bed, Boomer called. He slid off from her bedside. Will you try? He asked. She shrugged. Dell, please. And the tears were 2 seconds away. Okay, she agreed, just so somebody else wouldn't be sobbing because of her. He put his face close to hers. I know you can do it, he whispered. RB? Yep. 1, 2, 3. She counted like Clarice did when somebody had till 10 before trouble. And he was gone. Counting. Deli spit the word. I'd rather eat worm sandwiches. In the dark, she tried to think of something else she could do to be Deli different. They could tie me up, she said. Then I couldn't fight. But she couldn't eat or do her homework either. They could keep me in my room forever, she suggested. Clarice wouldn't leave her alone in the house, though, since she parachuted off the porch roof. Forget it. There's no fixing me. She gave up again, till she remembered Clarice crying. Chisel, she murmured, because Deli could take people calling her names or being sent to a special school. Everybody in the world could give up on her, except Clarice. RB only counts when he gets worked up. That's hardly ever. I'll have to do it every ballgram second, she complained. But there was Clarice, her eyes still asking. All right, I'll count, she told the darkness, and that's how she went to sleep. 1 ballgram it, 2 ballgram it. All right, that was chapters 12 through 18. So that is where we're going to stop today. So see you guys in the next video.